that introduction. I first want to say I definitely appreciate the overview from Chairman Amali Yeshitela, whom I salute as my leadership as a member of the African People's Socialist Party. I also want to appreciate all of the presentations before me, Comrade Yesterday and Comrade Amanda Wallace with their very sharp summations of how this state attack on Africans particularly affect African women and our children. Certainly appreciate Dr. Matsamala Odom for always bringing the historical and the historical materialist concept to the context of our webinars. And must say that Comrade Sister Belinda Parker Brown and her energy is always fire, the fire that we need to keep this train rolling. One of the things I'm charged with doing today in this presentation is discussing how the state not only acts in the form of the FBI, but also in other ways, such as the police. I live in a place called Tampa, Florida, where the police have been particularly brutal to African people for decades. Some examples. I want to kind of talk about the state, not just in the context of the police, but the context of the police and their tentacles, like the courtroom. So I want to talk a little bit about police brutality, and then about the cruel and unusual punishment that often occurs in the courtroom after police attacks for African people. So it was just a bit about the state and in its manifestation of terror in the form of the police here in Tampa. We can first go back to one of the largest rebellions in the Tampa Bay area. 1967, the police killed a young African named Martin Chambers, shot him in the back as he ran away from them. Chairman laid out in the overview that it's a crime, to oppose slavery if you are an enslaved African, or whoever you are, but certainly if you're an enslaved African, to oppose slavery, to run for freedom is certainly, a crime. It's unlawful to do that. And so this young African Martin Chambers, as he ran away from the police, shot in the back, trying to climb a fence, and African people stood up and rebelled against that, burned much of the businesses in the area where this occurred to shambles. And Comrade Sister Belinda Parker Brown is right. We Black is FBI attacks because Black is back. Whenever we stand up, you see a vicious response from them, and so we stood up, and the state's response to Africans standing up in response to them brutally murdering Martin Chambers was to eradicate the whole so-called burgeoning Black community at the time, and left what used to be known as Central Avenue in place of that burgeoning business district, some kind of a skate bowl where people could come and skateboard. So the police attacked our African brothers, shot and killed them. We stood up and rebelled. They wiped out markets, doctors' offices, lawyers' offices, theaters, nightclubs. We were socialized in the rest of it. Fast forward 2 decades later to 1987, the police killed a young man named Melvin Eugene Hare, choked him out, blood choke, put pressure on his carotid artery so that the blood couldn't go to his brain, and he died. You might remember that's the kind of injury Brother George Floyd suffered, and Melvin was a brother characterized as having some kind of mental illness. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia, right? And so you have this brother who needed help, but instead what he got was choked out and killed by the police. And again, the people rose up and fought in a tremendous way in what was called the College Hill projects, College Hill Ponce de Leon projects. The thing that's important about that particular event, well, one thing that's important about it is that College Hill and Ponce de Leon were 25% of the people. I was going to say it was predominantly Black, but that doesn't characterize the living situation most appropriately, most adequately. The reality is that the sharper reality is 25% of the people and 25% of the Black people in Tampa lived in College Hill and Ponce de Leon projects. Heavy concentration of African people in those projects, but you have these white cops, these agents of the state patrolling this all Black community where a quarter of the Africans in the community live. And you have these agents of the state terrorizing African people all the time, and ending up killing this young brother who who just needed some help. And then you fast forward to 2014, a very similar. Well, let me back up a little bit. Another instance of police brutality in Tampa that stood out for a lot of people was when this cop named Mike Roberts. He was I met the guy a couple of times. He was a what you call a canine cop. And he had the dog, and I can attest that this two-legged dog, Mike Roberts, was more vicious than the four-legged dog he had with him. Always on the attack. Whether African people were at the park trying to have fun, African people were at the nightclub, hanging out trying to have fun. No problem. Nobody up in any kind of uproar, chaos. With this guy always showed up. Mike Roberts always showed up with his dog, causing problems. Well, one day, as was his custom, he saw this brother named Umberto Delgado pushing a shopping cart down the street, and they some claim that Umberto Delgado had some mental issues, and so here comes the two-legged dog with this four-legged dog and runs up on Umberto Delgado for no reason. The brother just going down the street with his shopping cart, minding his business, and Mike Roberts jumps out on him and attempts to take his life, but Umberto Delgado was able to stand up and successfully defend himself against the vicious attack of Mike Roberts. And Mike Roberts, he's no longer with us today. But the thing is, it's not crazy to want to defend yourself or to defend yourself against agents of the state who we see do us harm and attack us all the time. In a similar vein, you fast forward to 2010, you see Dante Morris, who was a brother that, again, Dave Curtis was one cop, and Jeffrey Cocab, another cop. I had some familiarity with Dave Curtis. As a matter of fact, just hours before he attempted to attack Dante Morris, he was at my mother's house looking to attack and perhaps capture one of my cousins. And so, I mean, I'm familiar with the guy. And so here he takes his bad guy show on the road and runs up against Dante Morris, who was able to successfully defend himself and preserve his life against David Curtis and Jeffrey Cocab. Stood up 2 minutes, stood up, and he won. Well, let me move more quickly. Let's move to the courtroom then. Jennifer Porter in 2004 ran over 4 children, killed them, 4 African children, killed 2 of them, a 13-year-old and a 3-year-old. She pled not guilty to leaving the scene of an accident involving death and received no jail time, just a little bit of probation, and tried to get off of probation early. You also have people like Deborah LaFave, who was a known rapist, right? Who admitted to doing it, but the police and the courts and the judges said that she was too pretty to go to prison, and she did not go. You have this whole kind of thing where, on the one hand, white people can get away with murder, can get away with rape. Then you have Africans like this one. A 20-year-old I know, I've represented him. The young brother was caught with a gun one time, and so he ended up on probation. They caught him again. He had 1 bullet. Then they want to put him in prison for years. Whereas on the one hand, we know that you can get away with murder and rape if you look like the colonizer. The state will show you if you are the colonized, we have nothing reserved for you but the worst and most cruel and unusual punishment. And let me just rush to the end and say this. One thing that Chairman O'Malley has taught us and still teaches us is that one thing that the state must have is a monopoly on violence, be it through the FBI, the police department, or the courts. The state demands having a monopoly on violence. And I'll say, in my own experience, bandits the whole idea with Tyree Nichols and these 5 black cops, it doesn't matter the people doing the work of the state, people who are agents of the state, whether those bandits are look like us, whether they're Africans or whether they're not. That's not the critical question. The critical question is, are they agents of the state or are they working for the people? And bandits without badges came to my home one day, shot and killed my son in my front yard. And the guys who did it, well, at least one of them who murdered my child, went to court and got off. But it's not the court's responsibility to deal with that stuff. It's our responsibility to do so. However, as Sister Belinda Parker Brown stated, the state is well aware that when we stand up and do for ourselves, we eliminate we eliminate their ability to have power and control over our lives. But we can't do anything to the people who come and do banditry in our communities unless we find ourselves in the throes of the police and of the court system and perhaps even the FBI. So what we must do all the time is to organize anyway, as is the example of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the African People's Socialist Party, the Rahul movement, the Rahul Solidarity movement, and the African People's Solidarity Committee, all the time working in the face of the most brutal terror exacted on them by the FBI, the police department, and the courts. But we still have to organize and fight until we are free. Uhuru.